What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I've got another Stephen King book review for you. And arguably, I would say this is probably the book he's most well known for. If you were to ask people on the street to name a Stephen King book, I think they would either say The Shining or they would say It by Stephen King. It's a thick boy of a book. I think The Stand is bigger. But this edition is 1,153 pages. So if it's not his biggest book, it's definitely probably second biggest book that he's ever written. This is the movie tie-in cover for the Andy Muschietti directed film. It came out in 2015, I think. And that's when I read this book, was during the summer before that movie came out. I had never read it before, but I did want to see the movie, but I definitely wanted to read the book before the movie. I think I read it in June or July of that year, and it only took me like a month to read it, which wasn't bad for me at the time. I was just still sort of getting back into reading. So reading a 1,000-page book in about a month was pretty good for me. I did want to say sort of a fun fact really quick. The TV miniseries that had Tim Curry play Pennywise. In the book, Pennywise comes back every 27 years, and the miniseries came out, and then 27 years later, this movie came out, so that was kind of a cool coincidence. I'm going to go ahead and read the description on the back real quick and then get into my thoughts and everything on the book. I really don't know what I want to say that probably hasn't been said a million times already or been said better by other people, but I still wanted to get a review up on my channel since it is not only one of my favorite books of all time, but it is one of my favorite Stephen King books, and I have yet to actually film a review for it. So I'm going to go ahead and read the back real quick and then give you my thoughts and everything on the book. To the children, the town was their whole world. To the adults, knowing better, Derry, Maine was just their hometown. Familiar, well-ordered, a good place to live. It was the children who saw and felt what made Derry so horribly different. In the storm drains, in the sewers, it lurked, taking on the shape of every nightmare, each person's deepest dread. Sometimes it reached up, seizing, tearing, killing. The adults, knowing better, knew nothing. Time passed and the children grew up, moved away. The horror of it was deep buried, wrapped in forgetfulness, until the grown-up children were called back, once more to confront it as it stirred and coiled in the sullen depths of their memories, reaching up again to make their past nightmares a terrible present reality. So that's the description of it. If you don't know, like it says on the back, they deal with this as kids and then they come back and deal with it again as adults. So the book is split into two parts. The first part is them as kids. It takes place in 1957, I want to say, and we're following the Losers Club. They're sort of outcasts, and there's sort of the new kid, the fat kid, the poor kid, the stutterer, the nerdy kids, the black kid. So they're sort of outcast, and they're picked on and bullied by Henry Bowers and his group of friends. There's sort of two groups of antagonists in the book, which I liked. There's Henry Bowers and his friends, so that's the human antagonist, the bullies, and then they're also dealing with this otherworldly, supernatural, Pennywise the clown. And I like how that played off each other throughout the story. But we follow this group of kids. There's Bill, Bev, Ben, Mike, Eddie, Richie, and Stan. So I think that's all of them. I don't think I missed any. So there's 7 kids, and like I said, they're sort of the outcast, and they band together, form these friendships and relationships. A lot of it is, formed through dealing with Pennywise and the tragedies and traumas they suffer together. Really forms and bonds the relationship stronger than it would have been otherwise. They come to call themselves the Losers Club, and that's sort of what the book is about, more so than this evil entity, Pennywise the clown. It's more about the characters and their relationships and sort of the loss of innocence, the loss of being a child due to having to deal with these extreme, crazy, horrifying experiences. And that's something I sort of mentioned in my review of The Institute. Stephen King is fantastic at writing characters. His characters for the most part. I mean, I've only read one book where I didn't like his characters, and that was Elevation. But every other thing I've read, I've really enjoyed his characters. They feel real. They feel real life. Like you go up and talk to them and see them on the street, go to a store and talk to them, whatever. But he's also fantastic at writing children. The kids in the Institute were great, and the kids in It are even better. You know, everyone's been a kid, so everyone knows what kids act like, how they talk. And with him, they just seem genuine and real. And other authors, you can tell that it's an adult writing kids. But with Stephen King, it always feels natural. And the kids always feel like kids are supposed to feel like. You know, just, I don't know how he does it, but his kids are always so natural. And, you know, they act just like I did when I was a kid, for the most part. And they just seem real. And that's probably my favorite part of the book is learning about these kids and growing with them as they grow closer to each other and dealing with all these, you know, crazy extreme circumstances. But the first part of the book is about the kids and dealing with Pennywise and also these bullies, sort of these two enemies pitted against each other. But they finally think they defeat Pennywise, and they make this blood pact that if he were ever to return, you know, they would come back and try to finish him off once and for all. And then they sort of drift away from each other after that, even while they're still living in Derry. Some move away. They are not as close as they were when they were actually fighting against Pennywise. And then as adults, they all have moved away except for Mike. Mike Hanlon's the only one who stays in Derry, Maine. And kids start to go missing again, and he thinks Pennywise is back. So he calls all the kids back to come back and try to fight off Pennywise and defeat him once and for all. And all the ones who moved away, they've forgotten everything. They forgot about Pennywise. They forgot about what really happened to them as kids. And, you know, as they come back as adults, they slowly start to remember and recollect what actually happened. As it says on the back, Pennywise, he feeds off of your fears and your emotions, and he is able to sort of change into or manifest into your greatest fear. So it was fun to see, you know, their greatest fears as kids, scared of things like mummies and werewolves, versus their fears as adults. You know, when they come back as adults, it's not the same fears they had as children. It's now their adult fears, and they're vastly different from what they used to be. Stephen King, he's great at writing you into areas and places and settings that you can visualize. You feel like you're there along with the characters. The town of Derry, Maine, it's a fictitious town. I think it's based on Bangor, Maine. Bangor, Maine, I think that's how you say it. I think he moved there specifically because that's what he was basing Derry off of. I might be completely wrong, but Derry it's a great character in itself. You know, it feels real, feels lived in. You go along with the kids to different places like the drugstore, and they pass the movie theater and the library. And there's I don't think it's called a water tower in the book. There's this water tower sort of thing, and it feels real. You feel like you're there along with the characters, and that's another great thing about Stephen King's writing, I feel, is you always feel like you're there in these settings and scenarios along with the characters. I don't really know what else I want to say about it. I think my favorite part of it actually is the ending. I loved the ending to the book. Stephen King, he's known for not really sticking the endings too well in some of his books, but this one is one of my favorite endings that he's done, along with The Dark Tower. The ending to The Dark Tower, I loved that ending, and this is one of my other favorite endings of his. I want to read the last paragraph. So if you haven't read the book and don't want to be spoiled with what happens at the end, you go ahead and step away. But I do want to read the last paragraph because, like I said, it is my favorite ending. And I think this is the most bittersweet, or actually the saddest part of the whole story. And I'll talk about that why after I read this paragraph here. He awakens from his dream, unable to remember exactly what it was, or much at all beyond the simple fact that he has dreamed about being a child again. He touches his wife's smooth back as she sleeps her warm sleep and dreams her own dreams. He thinks that it is good to be a child, but it is also good to be a grown-up and able to consider the mystery of childhood, its beliefs and desires. I will write about all of this one day, he thinks, and knows it's just a dawn thought, an after-dreaming thought. But it's nice to think so for a while in the morning's clean silence, to think that childhood has its own sweet secrets and confirms morality, and that morality defines all courage and love. To think that what has looked forward most also looks back, and that each life makes its own imitation of morality, a wheel. And if you don't know, cause wheel, that's a big theme in the Dark Tower books. Or so Bill Denborough sometimes thinks on those early mornings after dreaming, when he almost remembers his childhood and the friends with whom he shared it. So that's the ending to it, and I think that's the saddest part. The kids, they all form these super tight bonds and relationships with each other, and then as adults, they left, and all those times around Pennywise and their childhood, all those memories and stuff fade away, and these were probably the people he was closest to, even compared to their parents and wives and spouses and children. That time when they were together fighting against Pennywise as children, and when they came back as adults and remembered, those were probably the closest relationships they ever had with each other. And it's sort of sad to think that once they moved away and went about their lives again, that all that faded away, and they don't even really remember their closest friends and all the things that they went through together. So for me, I love the ending to that. Like I said, that's one of my favorite endings, and I think that's one of the saddest parts about the whole book. It's just they don't even remember each other after everything that they went through together. But that's all I want to say about this. Again, this has been It by Stephen King. And this is a fantastic book. Obviously, I gave it 5 stars. I think this is my second favorite Stephen King book. Number 1 is Salem's Lot, and then I think this is number 2. But if you've read it, I'd like to hear your thoughts about it down in the comment section. If you liked it, didn't like it, whatever it may be. But thanks for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.